Hey guys, this is Tempest King, and I'm here to help you create a deck for Magic the Gathering. First, let's start off with the most important part of your deck, the goal of your deck. Now, the goal is basically how you're going to win the game, so it decides what cards you're going to use and what cards you don't. There's a couple of goals, but the main are probably mill, which is to get rid of as many cards as possible from your opponent's deck, so you lose by being out of cards. Burn, which is to use instants and sorceries to deal direct damage to your opponent. Control is to make it so your opponent is disrupted by cards like Duress and Mana Leak that let you stop a card or counter it completely. Aggro is to summon monsters and just overall be aggressive, supported by a couple of strong monsters in your deck. Theme is to use subtypes like Soldiers, Allies, and Hells that when used together with cards of the same subtype get stronger than used alone. Now, these aren't the only types of decks, but there are some others like Stall and Combo that I haven't mentioned. But they're not as common as above, so you really won't care. Also, don't mind mixing two goals, like a burn deck using some big defenders seen in stall decks can protect you while you destroy the opponent with spells. Second, you want to choose colors that go with your deck, but this is pretty easy since most colors are already specifically made for these decks. Mill decks normally want to use blue and black as they easily get rid of your opponent's cards. Burn is always red. Control is supported by blue with a splash of white and black since they can use creature and control cards like Doomblade and Oblivion Ring. Aggro can be separated into two types. Puny, which is summoning a lot of weak guys that are supported by red and white, and Powerhouses, which are normally green. Theme is normally supported by whatever color they are, like Elves, which is mostly green. Doesn't mean there are other colors of Elves, but most are green. Allies are a little bit tricky since they come in a lot of colors, but mostly you'll be seeing green, white, or blue. Again, there are other colors that can go into these decks, but most of the time it will be these colors. We're at the hardest part of the deck building process, which is choosing what cards will go into your deck. When I build decks, I first off choose cards that will be the centerpiece of my deck. So for Control, Burn, and Mill, I'll probably be looking at spell cards first, then look for creatures to support it. Aggro and Theme, I'll be looking at creatures first, then spells that will improve their power or exile cards I don't like last. Now I can't really help you too far into this part, but at least let me give you this helpful advice about cards that go into your main deck and those that go in your sideboard. Now, sideboard is 15 cards you can switch into your deck before and after rounds. If you're playing for fun, use this any time. But fair warning, if you're in a tournament, ask an official or judge when you can use your sideboard normally, because it's sometimes often reserved for the higher rounds like the finals. Now the first thing you always want to remember, the 15 cards that go in your deck, your sideboard, should be situational only. Let's start off with an easy one like Flash Freeze. It's a card that lets you counter a green or red spell for very cheap, but here's the bad part. It only works for green and red. So the other colors you can't cancel, and artifacts are included. If your opponent's using a blue-white deck, Flash Freeze is just a waste, so put it in your sideboard, so if you do face a green or red deck, you can switch it in. A slightly harder one is the Great Stable Stag. It gets protection from blue and black, and can't be countered. Better yet, it's a 3/3 for 2 green and 1 colors. It's a hard decision, but it's based off of two things. One is your deck dual colors like green and blue. Remember, if it costs 2 green and then 1 colorless, so you'll need 2 forests and not just 1. So if you can't find that extra forest, it's going to be sitting in your hand for a while. 2, is there any other cards that work better in deck? Remember, there's a whole list of cards. Is there any other cards that can find better synergy than this one? Finally, we're going to be working on the mana curve, or how much land are in your deck compared to the creature cards or spell cards in your deck. Now, most people say put in 22 and you'll be fine. I like to be a bit more accurate. So first thing you're going to do is put your cards in an order from left to right based off the mana from lowest to highest. If you notice most of your cards are higher than 3 mana, you should either remove them and replace them with cheaper cards, or make sure you have cheaper cards that can give you mana to support such costly creatures. Second, look at the color cost of each card. If most are green, then a small amount are blue. Then obviously you should put in more forest. But if you're blue cards cost 2 blue instead of something like 1 blue and colorless, you should, or activate abilities that take blue mana, you might want to reconsider the amount of blue mana in your deck. Now, as for your amount of lands, this is more of guessing and testing over and over again until you think you got it right. But for now, I'd say have either under 27 cards and over 20. It seems to be the best area for most decks. Hopefully this helped you a bit, and this is Tempest King signing out.